Guys, for the group, I'll give you a quick little intro. Todd Butzer is probably one of the very few small handful of people that brought Maureen to Keller Williams. We've had a relationship with Todd for, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years when we really started exploring the KW world and what it meant to bring something like this to Milwaukee. And so Todd used to be the regional director for our region within the Keller Williams world. And in the last 12 months has really kind of stepped aside to focus on what's next for him in life. But someone I've always looked up to, extremely, extremely smart. And financials are the one thing that I always find that when I have conversations with agents, that 90% of the agents don't understand it or they don't pay attention to it, which is mind-boggling to me. And Todd has been teaching this class for several years to really help kind of what I call agent financials for dummies, you know, the old yellow books that everybody used to read. And Todd gives a great kind of breakdown around what should I be doing with this money and how do I manage my expenses. So with that, I'm turning it over to Todd. And Todd, the show is yours.
Okay, great, Charlie. Thank you. And I'm excited, Milwaukee. It's exciting to be here. I'm great friends with the Stalley family, love them all. And I'm just thrilled to be here with you guys. This is a lot of fun for me. This is not work. This is a joy for me. So let's get right at it. Charlie, I'll share a screen here in a little bit. A couple of years ago, let me start with this. We're going to talk money today, and I've brought this up before, so some of you may have heard me say this. When I'm talking about money in this kind of an environment, or most environments actually, I'm not talking about stuff. I don't care about stuff. I mean, if you want nice things, great, go get them, you know. But this is not a class about how to buy a Rolex, you know. This is a class, or it's not really a class, but a discussion around asset building, okay? It's about how to Jim Rohn once said, the great speaker Jim Rohn once said, have you built a financial wall around your family that nothing can break through? Now, Maureen, don't give any numbers. Pardon me, don't give a number. But what's happened to the assets or the net worth of the Stalleys since you came to Keller? This isn't a Keller advertisement, by the way. This isn't about KW, but since you've made this move, what's gone on with your assets or your net worth?
I would say unequivocally, our net worth has X 4 times, and our net worth is 4 times greater than it was when we started.
Okay, and that was, like Charlie said, 7 or 8 years ago.
It was 7 years as of this month.
Okay, so, and here's why I bring that up. And some of you might be going, well, yeah, that's Maureen. And, you know, okay, well, here's the thing. If Rick and Maureen lived a highly leveraged life with lots of debt, no assets, no money, spent everything they made, how would they have been able to do a Keller Williams? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the financial wall around your family that nothing can break through. So let's go here. A couple of years ago, and some of you might remember this, but a couple of years ago, Gary Keller made the announcement that you could no longer get on stage with him at Mega Camp without him first seeing your P&Ls and your financial statements, balance sheets, your complete financials. Why do you think he did that? Why would he make that kind of request or demand, actually? I'll help you. Here's what happened. He would invite a monster producer up on stage. And, you know, they're doing 300 units a day or whatever they are doing. And he'd bring them up and he'd interview them. And then he would find out later from various sources that they were broke. And that was embarrassing because he's putting them up as a model in terms of productivity, production, efficiency, well-run business, and he's interviewing them and he's putting their thoughts out into the world. Come to find out later, they are not good business people. They are messy. They're sloppy. And that was embarrassing. He said, we're not having that anymore. We have to, we're going to require that I see that you're fiscally sound. He brought up not that long ago in the meeting, he said that he has since heard of podcasts and things like that of people that have maybe left KW and they're now doing podcasts. He said they were inches from bankruptcy and they're doing podcasts about money. So this what we're going to go through today is important and it matters in your life. And if it's mismanaged, it's extremely stressful on you and your family. So I have one more thought on this, and then we'll go into a sharing screen here, Charlie. And you may have heard me bring this up before because I've talked about it. Let's say that an agent is messy financially. I don't care what their production is. It could be off the chart production, or it could be very low. Either way, but they're messy financially, they're sloppy. And they go meet with a potential listing or potential buyer. And that potential listing or buyer, seller or buyer, they're not sloppy financially, they're really sound. That doesn't mean they make millions of dollars. It just means they're really good with money. Let me ask you this. Do you think that potential seller or buyer can pick up a vibe that the agent is messy financially?
Absolutely.
Maureen, absolutely. I'll promise you, it's like a laser coming off your head. I'll give you a real quick one. I got a call, Charlie, about right before I stepped out of the role, right around then, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And this guy called me up, really nice guy, called me up, and he was interested in maybe doing a Keller Williams office in Wyoming. He was actually in Colorado. I won't give you a lot of detail because I don't want to, get too close to home for somebody. But nice guy. And we did a kind of a get to know each other discussion, and then he gave me some people to call that were kind of hey, I have some references. You can kind of check me out. Call these people. Well, one of the people he mentioned was a close colleague of mine and somebody I knew quite well. So I called this woman up and I said, Bill from Colorado mentioned your name and he's thinking about opening an office with Keller. And she said, okay. I said, let me give you my gut on this. She said, okay. I said, I think he's a really nice guy. People like him. She said, yeah. And he has no money. By the way, that doesn't mean anything morally or anything. It just means he can't do Keller. He doesn't have the assets to do it. So I said, I don't think he has any money. She said, he has no money. Now, it's nothing specific, and it was a judgment call, and that might not have been fair, but there's a vibe that comes off, folks, and sloppy shows up sloppy. So here's the good news, and it's a great time of year to think about this. We can fix this quickly. We really can fix it quickly. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do. I'll start sharing screen, guys, and hopefully it'll show up. All right, is that showing up for everybody?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start here. We're going to start with the quick assessment. And all this is, and you don't have to write these down. We'll send the whole thing to Charlie and the team, and you guys can just take this and do whatever you want with it. So what we're doing is just a quick checkup on our business. By the way, I know as I present this, many of you are just really good at this. You've got this nailed. You're strong. It's an acumen, you have an aptitude for watching your money. All right, so here we go. Have you paid 3 installments toward your 2020 tax liability? Now, Charlie made a couple of comments about agents oftentimes will struggle financially. This is one of the biggest areas, folks. In fact, It's not really that 3 installments should have been paid. Your 4th installment's due in about what, 4 weeks from today. Your taxes are not due next April, and they're not due next October. They're due in 4 weeks. And if you don't pay them in 4 weeks, nobody comes and gets you. There's no police squad. There's nobody doing anything with your house or anything. They're just adding up the bill. They're just charging you more. And that's a travesty. I'm not making a political statement. It's a tragedy that we spend more than we need to spend. So now, if we haven't done this, it doesn't mean you're bad. But it is costing you money, okay? And it's causing you stress. And it's also a beacon. And here's what it's saying. I do not manage my money like a business. I just take the money in and I kind of use it is what I do. And we'll give you some more examples of that coming up. Do you have 3 to 6 months of cash reserves? Now, when cash is tight, and I've been there, when cash is tight and people go, well, pay your credit card off every month in full. And you go, yeah, right. I don't have that money right now. Or I don't have 3 to 6 months of cash reserves. I got $200. Okay. This is your target though. Now let me give you a real life scenario. This happened, Maureen, this is about 2 weeks ago. So I get a text from an agent. This is just allergies, folks, not COVID. So I get a text from an agent that is just outstanding. I mean, I can't say enough about her. And she works in a very niche market that has been hammered by civil unrest, COVID, you name it. It's been hammered, and it's a high-end market, okay? And we started talking, and she wanted some advice. She wanted some coaching. And again, she's a brilliant agent. And again, this is like 2 weeks ago. So I said, so, Sue, how much cash, here's my first question. How much cash reserves do you have? How many months of expenses? And I was kind of crossing my fingers because if that number was really short, I was going to have to go a certain direction in what we need to do, okay? Here's what she said, and I would never make anything up on one of these. She said, I have 2 years. I have 2 years of reserves. I said, okay, now we have time. Jack Welch once said, cash is king, and everybody's heard that phrase, but then he finished the phrase by saying, because it gives leadership time. If you don't have this yet, it's something you're going to aspire to, hopefully. Do you review financials monthly? You either do or you don't. It's not, nobody's condemning anybody on this call. Nobody's judging anybody. Do you review them monthly? If you don't, we'll make some arguments as to why you want to, okay? Do you operate from a budget? Many people that I bring this up with will say, Todd, a budget for me is almost impossible because my money is different every month. Well, okay. I have 2 different businesses that both vary every single month, and we operate on a very strict budget. And they both operate, the revenues are different every single month, okay? By the way, the net operating income on one is, so far year to date, is over 99% of what I projected. It's like we're within like a few dollars of what I actually projected. So you can get accurate on this. If you think, and I know the feeling because I've been there, if you think a budget is going to trap you, and I know this sounds cliche, it's the exact opposite. It will free you up, and we'll give you some tips on how to do it. Does your business have debt? Now, for a lot of us and the business are identical. We're the same, which is can be problematic. I guess this question might say, do you have debt? And I'm not talking about for an asset like a home or something like that. I'm talking about, do you have credit card debt? Do you have installments on things? Years ago, I heard a speaker say that if you know, let me see if I could draw it with my hand here. If God in the universe is providing for you at this level, and you're spending at this level, okay, you're outspending your income. So if you have collected debt on things, that's consumer debt, you're spending more money than you make. And if that number is going up, you're digging a bigger hole. So let's get rid of that. What do you think how do you think you'd feel, and what kind of vibe do you think you would give off? And I don't mean snooty or arrogant, but what kind of vibe do you think you'd give off to a potential seller or buyer when you don't have any debt? It's going to be different. And by the way, your stress level goes way down. Life is stressful enough, especially in these days, right? Do you pay yourself regularly? I really don't, because, you know, money comes in, money goes out. Incidentally, when I say I you know, to use an old Clinton line, I feel your pain. I feel the pain. When I was first started selling marine, I'd get a commission check for, you know, $5,000, and I'd say to my wife Jody, I'd say, well, you know, this isn't all ours. We need, you know, $1,500 for expenses and another $1,500 to operate this, and, you know, so we might get 2 out of the 5. And Jody's saying, yeah, right. I mean, we need all the money, dude. Put it in the account. So I've been in these dialogues. Do you pay yourself a regular, monthly, bi-weekly, either guaranteed payment if you're an LLC or just a regular payment out of your accounts? Do you take advantage of self-employed retirement plans? I met a woman, really nice woman, maybe a year and a half ago or so. She wanted some money consultation. We sat down at my office, and she's 70 and her husband's, I think, a little bit older. He's in a highly leveraged, very stressful business, and she's selling real estate, you know, at a good number. She does well. And I said, do you guys have any retirement savings? Do you have any retirement plans, a SEP, a solo 401k or whatever? No. Hard to catch up at age 70, folks. I mean, you can make some strides, but it's hard to catch up. And there are some phenomenal, I'm not a CPA and I'm not a financial planner. There are phenomenal plans available for self-employed people. And you can get very aggressive on how much you put aside. So let's say, depending on how you're structured, don't quote any numbers. Let's say you put 20 grand into one of these plans. For most of these plans, unless it's a Roth IRA, you deduct that from your income. You don't pay tax on that, and you put 20 grand away for your family. Instead of just saying, well, I don't really pay any attention to it, then you pay the tax on the 20, which is going to be 8 grand or whatever that number is, and you have nothing to show for it. So instead of sheltering some dollars for the time being and taking a deduction, we simply ignore it. We don't put any money in savings, and we pay a higher tax. So, you know, Charlie brought up a good comment in the introductions. You know, if we don't pay attention to this, it's expensive. And I have a lot of people say that to me. Well, I don't really look that much at that. I don't really care. Well, it's expensive. And I think our families do care. So, all right. And there's a lot of great plans out there. And by the way, on that, just on the plans, just do yourselves a favor. Just Google, retirement plans for self-employed people. Just start reading, and then order a book off Amazon or whatever. And you can make great strides there too. How would you rate the accuracy of your financial record keeping? So real quick story on that. I've got a guy in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area that I've known for maybe 30 years. He owns his own niche real estate company. He's not with our company. Great guy, wonderful networker, really good at the business and in terms of selling. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't trying. I'd love him to merge his company in with us. So he and I were talking, and we talk regularly, and he wanted me to look at his financials. And this was right when COVID was hitting. It was like last February, March. And so we met at a coffee shop, and he brought his financials out. And I looked at one of the numbers on his P&L under what's called cost of sale. I said, Bill, what's this number? It's big number. He said, I don't know. I said, okay, what's this number? He said, I don't know what that is. I said, Bill, do me a favor. Don't show these to anybody. You can't show these financials to anybody because no one is going to merge with you. No one's going to buy you. And I'm a good friend of his, so I can speak directly with him, honestly and lovingly to him. This is messy. Well-run companies, and I that could be an individual, by the way. Well-run companies have somebody watching the money. I'll share this one real quick. I've shared it before. Keller Williams, the way my partnership works for the North Central region is I was actually, for the regional director role, an employee of Keller Williams, which owns part of an LLC, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the company does not pay for alcohol. Like if you go out for dinner, it won't pay for the alcohol, which I'm fine with. I'm great with that. So my wife Jody and I go to family reunion, and we're staying at one of the family reunion hotels, and we're putting everything on the hotel, knowing that if we buy a glass of wine at night, we're gonna pay for that, no problem. So we get done, we get the hotel bill, and we add up all of the alcohol beverages for the week, and we total them all up, and we send that check to Keller Williams Accounting. About a week later, I get a note from accounting. It said, you didn't add the tax on the alcohol into your check. We need that. Yes. I love that. That's not a cheap company, by the way. It's an accurate company. It's not overly frugal. It's accurate, right? And I care about that. So how would you rate the strength of your financial team? Do you have a CPA that you text and communicate with regularly? Not all the time, but regularly, not once a year, okay? Do you have a strong corporate counsel or an attorney that you could at least call or get to, do you have a good banking relationship in some fashion? And today that's getting more and more removed, and I understand that. Do you have someone on the financial planning part of your world? I don't mean just a regular certified financial planner that's saying, what day do you want to retire? And here's how much we need to save every year. I mean a real financial planner that's looking at all your assets, all of your income, everything you do, and saying, let's do this to maximize this based on your goals. Do we have that on our team? If we don't, we can start asking questions to get them on our team. Do you use MREA chart of accounts? If you don't, now you can go to QuickBooks and you can import the MREA chart of accounts. And Charlie, you guys could figure out where to go to pull that off the my KW now. I can't remember now where we get it from because I haven't done it in a year or so. But you go on down my KW, you can just pull those chart of accounts into QuickBooks and operate from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent chart of accounts. What is your net operating income as a percent of your GCI? Now, what's curious about this is some people don't even know what those two mean, which is okay. Net operating income is how much income is coming to your family or your home or your household after all your business expenses have been paid, all the cost of sale have been paid, everything's been paid, except taxes. What's your net operating income? What's your profit, so to speak, for the business as a percent of your gross? Now, here's what's curious about that question. If I ask an agent, I brought this up on the business planning class a couple of weeks ago on the KW Connect. If I ask an agent typically and say, hey, how much did you make last year? they'll typically quote that gross number there. I did, 100,000, or I did 50,000, or I did 200,000. Well, that's just the revenue of your business. That's not the question I asked. I want to know how much you made last year. Now, by the way, I'm not trying to be nosy with these people. This would be a business discussion. But when you say, how much money did you make? I would encourage you from going forward. Like if you're on the ALC and you're meeting with Charlie, and Charlie says, how much, do you need to make next year? That's not the gross, it's the net you're talking about, because the gross doesn't matter. We have people that gross a ton who don't have any money. I asked an agent from Remax, and I think the year I met him, he was going to do 400 and some units. He's way bigger than that now. And we sat down. I said, what's your net operating income? He didn't know. Now, if you went to a school teacher and said, how much money did you make? They would tell you, wouldn't they? They would know the number. If you went to a bank vice president and said, how much money do you make? They'd say, well, I make this. If you went to the VP of marketing for the Minnesota Twins or the Milwaukee Brewers and said, how much money do you make? They'd say, well, I make X. But we don't know that number. So again, that's a signal, right? That we got some challenges. What type of entity is your business? I did a survey, Charlie Marine, a couple of years ago with a bunch of agents, about 1,000 agents. And I think only 100 responded, which also tells us something. But I said, what kind of entity? A lot of them didn't even know, which is okay. But let's find out what kind of entity we are. Are we a sole proprietorship? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. You don't have to go out and form an entity. Nothing wrong with the sole proprietorship. It's the most common form of business ownership in the U.S. LLC, limited liability corporation, solely owned usually, or a sub-S corporation with very few shareholders. Those are your three most common. But it's important to know what kind of an entity you are. If you don't know or don't know why you want to be one or the other, that's a different class, different day. But it's just a call to your accountant or your legal professional to say, what would you recommend? And then ask them about it, talk to them about it. Okay, fiscal mindset and some discussion points here. First of all, there's a concept on here of respect for capital. And I'll tell you where that came from briefly here. Years and years ago, I was walking down the hall at Mega Camp. This was back when it was like at the Hilton Hotel. And Gary's walking along with a group of people, and he says, hey, you want to join me for lunch? I said, sure. Usually lunch with him means he's got an extra turkey sandwich in his backpack, just so you know. It's not a fancy lunch, you know. And so he said, you want to join me for lunch? I said, sure. I don't know why I'm invited even. We go into this conference room at the hotel, and there is a group of people there, some from KW, some not. And they were looking to raise some money from Gary into this company they were building. And I won't go into a lot of detail. But there was a point, you know, the first thing he did, of course, is look at their numbers. And he had some questions, a lot of questions. One part was they had raised some money to build some software, if I remember correctly. And so they raised this money, brought the money in, close to $1 million, and then to develop the software. Well, then later on the balance sheet, he sees a loan for $800,000. He said, well, wait a minute, you raised 800. What's the loan for? Well, they raised 800, but they paid themselves 800 while they were building it. They paid themselves high salaries. So we walked out of the meeting and he said, they have no respect for capital. And I thought, wow, as a young man in the business, I didn't either. My philosophy was with Jody and our family, I'll just make more, which is a bad strategy. It's a bad philosophy. So respect for capital is when you say, hey, you owe us the tax on the alcohol. Money's hard to make. It's a lot harder than people think. I mean, you know, once you get your rhythm, yeah, you can do it. But capital is critical. Budgeting. we'll show you more how to do that in a little bit. All about the net. It's not about the gross. It's about the net. You get there from the gross, but it's all about what you keep. Money flow and record keeping, and taxes, and growth and protection of assets. I mean, these are really kind of your key spots. And we'll touch on as many of these as we can today. And Charlie, if we need to do another one someday, we'll do another one after the first of the year if you want. How much time? What time do you want me to go to today? 11 or so?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Everybody good so far? Anything in the chat showing up that we need to answer or anything?
No, you're good.
Watching that. Okay. All right. Respect for capital. Here's some warning signs that we don't have respect for capital. Doesn't mean we're bad people. Okay. But here we go. I don't really like the number stuff. I don't really look at that. You know, if I have money in my bank account, I'm good. My accountant handles all my money. No, they don't. They don't. I don't care what relationship you have, because they can only give you back what you give them. No one cares more about your money than you. Well, I got great people. I do too, but I'm in there every day. Okay. I'm in there every day looking, and I'm not some wealthy big shot. I'm in there every day looking. I really am. I was in there this morning. By the way, the market started off this morning, didn't it? Right? Not by a lot, but a little bit. Yesterday was up with COVID vaccination excitement. All right. I've always had more money than I needed, so I don't really pay much attention to it. I've got money in my bank account. Okay, really? But we haven't paid our taxes yet this year. So we're paying more than we need to. And I wonder if our family cares that we've got $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 in penalties and interest. That's just out the window. By the way, we got to make double that to pay it. So sloppy has consequences here. It just has a lot of consequences. My bank account has money in it. I feel good. I mean, you guys know the deal here. I've got more important stuff to do, right? But you really don't. It's just not something I enjoy talking about. You know, money's interesting, isn't it? People don't want to talk about it. I was recruiting a waiter one time at a bar and grill that my wife and I like to go to. And he was a sharp guy. And he was walking by one night, busy night, and he's walking by real fast. I said, hey, Brett, I said, could I talk to you about an opportunity sometime? And he looked right at me, and he had like a towel over his shoulder, you know, and he goes, can I make any money? Now, by the way, we all know it's not about the money, but you have to fund your life, right? It's curious. A lot of us don't like talking about it. Respect for capital, signs of progress. You work from a budget. If you don't yet, we're going to give you some tips today on how to, and you're going to like it. I promise you, it'll get there for you. You'll feel good about it. You review financials every month. Now, I would have a hard time saying these things if I didn't do it. Okay, I really would, and I do these every single month. Incidentally, if for the North Central region where Gary's one of my partners, if the income is off, up or down from what we projected, we have to tell them what happened. Not from a what happened. No, tell me what happened. Describe that for me. Do you know what's going on with the business? All right. So we review them monthly. You keep accurate records. I actually had a woman come up to me at a breakout at family reunion a few years ago, and we got done doing a financials class, and she came up and she said, she's very nice lady. She said, "What do you mean by reconcile an account?" She didn't know what balancing a checkbook was. She had never done that. So we keep accurate records. Why? Because if we don't, it's expensive. So here, let me give you an example. I was doing an Age of Financials class, Charlie, a couple of years ago. I think we were in Madison. And I don't know how it came up, but a couple of the MCAs said, well, yeah, the agents pay their monthly bill at the office with a personal check. And I said, that's impossible. I said, no, they all do. So warning sign, if you're paying your monthly bill at the office with a personal check, it's costing you, you can do it, reconcile at the end of the year, but if you're doing that, that's a sign that we don't really track our expenses, and therefore we don't deduct them properly. And if we don't deduct them properly, it's costing us a lot of money. Your tax rate for the federal tax rate between, I'm going to be really close on this for 2020. Married filing jointly is the last one I looked up because that's how I file. If you're making between 80,000, 85,000, and 170,000, the top parts of that bracket are 22% federal. Okay. Now, your top bracket in your state is 7.65. That's 29, almost 30%. Plus, you have 15.3% on the first $133,000 for self-employment. So, quick math on that, that's 45% of those dollars earned. If we're not paying attention to it, that's how much we're paying double then, right? Instead of deducting it, we have to make that much more just to pay that bill. And we're losing out on all kinds of opportunity. You hold money accountable, and all that really is are you getting a return on what you're investing and spending? You pay your taxes and other commitments on time, because if you don't, it costs you more money. America is a great company, great country, because if you can't afford something, you can pay more. Think about that. People who can't afford it have to pay more. They don't have good credit, they have to pay a higher interest rate. They can't pay their rent on the 1st, they have to pay it late on the 15th, they pay a late fee. If you can't afford something in America today, you pay more. So we pay our commitments on time. You invest back into your business. If a business is operating really, really thin, meaning that the individual who owns it is highly leveraged, you owe a lot of money. You tend to take too much out of the business and not, Charlie, not reinvest back into the business. Okay. Your old world, and Charlie, you and I didn't talk in advance, so I don't want to go down a bad path for you, but in your old world, if you look at the revenues of a company like Miller Coors, the revenues, but then how much they put back into that company to market, right? And advertise and structure and recipe development and buying, little craft brewers that are no longer craft brewers because they want to tap that market. They're reinvesting back in. If we take everything out, we're stealing from our own company. That's it. So are you putting money back in? Okay. Now think of that list as kind of a to-do list. All right. Let's go into budgeting, because this is a challenge for a lot of people. And what we'll do is we'll just give you some tips on how to get started doing it. Charlie's got my contact information, and any one of you could reach out to me, and I'll give you whatever I got. I don't have every answer. I don't. But, I can give you some thoughts on this. Budgeting. Okay. Why do you do it? Well, all healthy business operations operate from a budget. Otherwise, there's you'll see coming up here in a second. It's a financial plan that estimates revenue and restricts unplanned spending. It's not in our budget. We're not going to go do that, because we were of sound mind when we put this together, and we're not going down that path unless there's a sound reason to do it, to take advantage of some opportunity. Think of it this way. If we understand the basics of what a profit loss statement is, we have our income, we have cost of sale, meaning things that take place just to get the income, like company dollar or royalty, things like that. Then we have our expenses, okay? And then you have your net profit. That's a P&L. All a budget is a look at the P&L in advance. I'm going to create my January 2021 P&L right now. How much do I expect to come in? How much is going to go out? How much is going to be invested back into the business? How much do I have to spend on marketing, blah, blah, blah. How much am I going to net? Okay. That's all a budget is. It's just a P&L in advance, in my mind. It highlights strengths and weaknesses of the business. You say, well, how does it do that? Well, it will show us if let's say just something as simple as, because we're going to break down, was it a listing side or a sales side? We might break it down and say, well, we're very buy side heavy in a market that we want to be more sell side heavy. It could be something as simple as that. Okay. And it gives us a look into the future that we can hang on to this. We can sustain. We can meet our commitments. When COVID was first hitting, my son runs a kind of a very hip, funky electronic marketing company. They're the kind of company that, you just talk about buying a new watch and then you look at your phone and there's an ad for a watch on your phone. Kind of freaky. That's what these guys do. But when COVID was first hitting, I said to Jake, I said, look, are you guys, how are you set up? He said, we're easily good through the end of the year. And this was back in like March. We're good through the end of the year for sure. Okay. They can see it. So it gives us clarity. Okay. How to do it. These are my best shots on how to do it. Let's straighten this part out right away. It's not about your goals. Well, I did 60 grand this year in gross income, but in 2021, I'm going to double that to 120. Okay, how? I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but the likelihood is that's not going to happen. So how? So don't confuse goals with strategic numbers. I'm going to show you something that I don't show to a lot of people, but I'll pull it up for you here if I can find it. Okay. Now, I don't know how this would translate on Zoom. This is for this is what I do to build my projections for my budget. I literally go month by month, office by office, and build it from scratch. Okay. This is not about a goal from anybody. It's not what anybody stated to me. This is simply based on data. What do I believe is going to happen? So when you're building this for 2021, you look at January and say, what's really going to happen in January? Not pie in the sky. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Print last year's P&L. If you can't print last year's P&L right now, 2019's, and soon it'll be 2020's, that's a sign. If you're not even sure where to get it, that's a sign that we've got work to do. And let me just take a quick side note. You're going to feel so good when you operate like a business and not a hobby. You'll feel so good. The stress will come away. The demands of machinations and trying to make things work will go away. You'll make more money and you'll be calmer about it. All right. So we're going to print last year's P&L. And on my screen, I got that gallery view. Okay. Print your multi-year trend report. This is curious, Charlie. There's a lot of agents who I found don't even know where to go get this. And see, the multi-year trend would be like it would be printed every month, wouldn't it? And it would be or downloaded every month on your computer or your phone, and you would just have it available all the time. Your multi-year trend is going to give you all kinds of data about how your business is running. Charlie, do you what's your thought on that? Do you think are agents using that or utilizing it at a high level?
In my opinion, it's probably the most underutilized tool that we can offer our group of people. And last week, for those of you that joined Maureen and I's business planning clinic, that was the Bible in which we built the plan for 21, right? To Todd's point, it gives you every sort of data set that you want to see towards what you've done and what you're tracking to do towards, let's just say 21 goals or what you did in 2020. It's a robust piece of information.
Thank you, Charlie. So, and again, Charlie and I haven't talked before this, but I just figured, so here's the thing. This is built from a multi-year trend. That's where it's built from, because I can see. So last year, let's say your gross revenues, meaning gross commission income, everything else you did in January was $6,000 or 60 or 600. Okay. So don't get attached to the number, but let's say it's $6,000 in 2020. And in 2019, it was 4,900. And in 2018, it was 7,100. Okay. And in 2016 or whatever, keep going, it was 5,400. So the range has been between 5 and 7. And now we put down on our budget for 2021, it's going to be 15 grand. See, I got to ask a question on that. Where's that money coming from? Now, if we say, well, we've already got that written, we already know, great. But it's so anyway, I'm going to get off this. It's based on data, not gut. It's not based on, a lot of these are market centers. They'll say, well, we're going to make X this next year. I don't see it because there's no trend line there. There's no data point. So if a Major League Baseball hitter says, well, I'm going to hit 400 next year, and you look at the last 5 years and it's always 220, it's going to be 220. We got to go with data, real facts. Okay. So that's it. So print your trend report. And if you do nothing from this call today, but just go get that, you're going to be amazed at the detail that's in there that you can use in operating your business. Strongly encourage you to do it. Here's what they look like. This is just one agent's. So let's take a look at something here. Let's say that this agent says to us, look up the second column here, closed volume. And we're the coach for this agent. This is a real agent, by the way, Gulf States agent. Good guy. Let's say that this agent says, hey, Charlie, now again, look at closed volume year to date, okay? And this guy sits down with Charlie to do a consultation, and Charlie says, okay, so Todd, tell me about your goals for 2021. Charlie, hey, I'm pumped up. I'm excited. I'm going to do 50 million this year, and I am pumped. Well, here's my question. Do you believe him?
No chance.
There's no chance. It's not going to happen. Now, people say, that's really negative. No, it's not negative. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. It's not going to happen. Now, I know some of you are still going, that's still so negative. Here's business to me is Apple Computing cannot come out for the first quarter and say, we're projecting revenues of 200 billion and come in at 100 billion because they wanted to shoot for a big goal. They can't do that. They have a 13-week, every 13 weeks, they have a call with investors to say, what the heck happened? So I'll give you another one on this same note. I've got a guy that I met at family reunion about 3 or 4 years ago, good friend. I know this guy for a long time. I meet him on Valentine's Day at reunion in the trade show floor. I said, Bill, how you doing? I'm doing great. I said, how's the year going to shape up? He said, I'm going to do $1 million this year in GCI. I'm not making up the number. I'm going to do $1 million in GCI for the first time ever. I said, I am pumped for you. That's great. Where are you year to date? He said, I'm at 66,000. This is now 6 weeks into the year. Okay. Now 66,000 6 weeks into the year sounds pretty good, except he's nowhere near. He's not even going to be, he won't be half for the end of the year. He won't be at half. So this is about accuracy and data. So pull this thing, you'll love it. I promise you, you'll love it. Budgeting how-tos. It's not about your goals. Print last year's P&L. Print your multi-year trend. Again, Charlie, we'll give you guys this PowerPoint if you want it. Print your business checking statements. Now, again, your trend report's going to give you most of this stuff, but your business checking statements are going to give you where's your money going, right? Because that's not going to show up in the multi-year trend. Use Excel or something similar to track this, or just pull it right off your actual your actual financial software. Start with forecasting monthly income. That when I do budgets, and I do them every year this time, what I do is I start with the income flow first. And how you do that, in my opinion, is you use data, not gut or hunch or I think I should be able to. I'm really going to buckle down. No, let's not. Okay. We can put that on a poster in our office somewhere or a picture next to the car we want to buy or whatever. We can do that. I'm talking about for forecasting. Come up with a number that's real. All right. So if you're brand new, talk to Charlie and the leadership team there. They'll guide you and look at what really looks like a realistic target for you. If you're experienced, you've got data to support it. So start with forecasting your monthly income. Again, not what you think you should be able to do, but what you will do, okay? Enter your monthly cost of sale. Cost of sale is, if you're a team, you have buyer agents, you split with your buyer agent, that's a cost of sale. If you have company dollar going to the office, that's a cost of the sale because the company dollar doesn't get charged unless you make the sale. Okay, so in other businesses they'll call it a cost of the goods sold, right? All right, so enter your monthly cost of sale for the month. What's going to come out in order to get those commissions in, and then you're going to enter your monthly expenses. In my view, at least at the start, it's okay to divide by 12, but really the best thing to do is take a look at last year's January P&L and say, how is it going to change this year? Well, I no longer have that expense. I don't do that anymore. I don't mark it on the back of that anymore or whatever. I don't do, okay, I'm now investing in the Facebook ads. That's a different number. So I'm going to put that in instead. I don't have that admin person anymore at that number. So actually raise their, so I got to put, you're going to make adjustments based on what's happening currently, but you start with what happened last year. Again, if you're new, meet with your leadership team. You got a great leadership team. They'll guide you through this. And then you're going to review it against your monthly P&L. So here's what happens. And again, I'm telling you, I do it every month for 2 different operations. And then of course our house too. But when the month ends, and from the 2 different operations, I have one operation, I get the numbers by usually the 3rd or 4th business day of the month for the previous month. That's how good those people are. The other one is usually mid-month, okay? And I'll get the complete actual P&L, okay, and balance sheet, but the complete P&L. And all the P&L is, I keep saying, it's just your income and expenses, essentially, okay? I'm going to get that breakdown, and then all I do is I hold it up to what did I believe was going to happen. And then I compare them. And it allows me then it gives me data to make good decisions about the business. And it shows me trends. Hey, we're starting to creep up on expenses here, or we're under budgeted for this, or we've got more revenue now because we're not traveling as much. We don't have those expenses. Not more revenue, but less expenses. We have more profit now because we're not traveling as much. Look, our cash reserves aren't where they need. It just gives you a roadmap. And if it seems complex, keep it really simple. Think like this. How much money were you thinking was going to come in January and why? How much was supposed to go out and why? And how did it actually go down? Just start there. And you don't, and by the way, we're not beating anybody up here. Meaning don't beat yourself up. Oh, I went over on this. Okay. But now see, because you're watching it. So instead of just saying, well, I don't really care. No, we do care, and we're going to watch it carefully. Okay.
Todd,
yeah.
let me just add one thing in there. The mistake I see many agents make, which is why they're so uncomfortable around their finances, is they don't have clarity of where money goes. And because they don't have the clarity, the problem is the money in this business is so fleeting, right? It comes in fast and it goes out fast.
So, Charlie, I love that. I'm glad you brought it up because it's a good place for us to kind of stop for a second. I'm going to address it right now. And then, in fact, let's do this. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, Charlie. And we'll just talk about it. And then and then I can answer any questions you got, and we'll get you guys out on time. And then Charlie, I'm happy to come back and do a kind of a follow-up here. What Charlie's bringing up is probably one of the most critical parts of operating a business in real estate, and that is we're not real about the number. Okay, and so here's if you got a pencil or pen or computer or whatever, you can put this down, and it's going to be pretty close. Okay, a $10,000 check comes in, all right, and let's say that the cost of sale part has already been taken care of, meaning the company at the closing already withheld that part. They withheld company dollar or royalty. Okay, so you get $10,000. The common thing to happen here is that we just put the money in our account. Okay, but we can't, because it's not our money. I can't stress that enough. The $10,000 is not our money. The $10,000 is the company's revenue. It's gross revenue. So the reason I wanted earlier when I said, tell me how much you're going to net this year. If I say how much money you're going to make, you say 100 grand. That I need to know the net number, because if we quote the gross, we sometimes spend and live like it's our money. It's not. So 10 grand comes in. 3,000 automatically is going to stay in the account. Okay. Right. And the 3,000, people say, well, that's for taxes. No, the 3,000 is for expenses to run your business. Okay. Now, $7,000 is sitting there now, and 7 could come over into your personal account, but you don't keep 7 because you got another 3 that's going to go to tax. So your net on that is going to run maybe 3,500 to 4 grand. And again, this is after cost of sale. Okay. So what Charlie was alluding to is the $10,000 check comes to Todd Butzer LLC, not my money. Okay. I cut a check maybe to my household U.S. bank account for $7,000. Then from the $7,000, I'm going to take another 3,500 or so, and that's going to go into a tax account, and then my family can live on 4. Okay. And if you just get that part down, you're gonna feel better, because your life suddenly got real. If we stop treating the gross as if it's our net, you'll get real about the business. And the great operators in your company, you got a lot of them there, a lot of them, great agents. That's how they operate. The gross is gross revenue. It's not their money. It's not their income. Does that help, Charlie?
Totally. It's understanding that relationship, that when you get your commission check, 100% of it's not yours. And understanding where that money goes becomes powerful then to understand the net. And not enough people are paying attention to the net.
No, they're not. So if you watch like Shark Tank, okay, I haven't seen it for a while, but when you watch that show, it's kind of funny because people come on with their different ideas and entrepreneurial ideas, and they're going to invent the new widget or whatever. But as soon as they present this cool new T-shirt maker or ice cream maker, whatever they're doing, what's the first thing those 5 investors do? They say, what's your numbers? Okay. How much does it cost you to make it? What's your carrying costs? What's your warehousing costs? What's your distribution? You don't even have distribution. What's that? No, they start ripping them apart based on the numbers. And what happens invariably on that show, even though people watch it before they go, is people don't know. They're guessing. And do you think those investors know when they're making up a number?
100%.
They know immediately, don't they?
The first 2 questions they ask, what were your gross revenues and what was your net profit? And then from there, they say, great, what was your cost of sale? What was the cost to produce the item? But those are the first 2 questions.
Yeah, all the time. And by the way, a lot of people don't even know. So, and if they say, well, we're thinking, there's no what, I think it's about. No, it's not about. If I say to you, how much of your business is repeat and referral? Well, I think it's about 90% is repeat and referral. That's incorrect. Because it's not, I think it's about. It is or it isn't. That's what's so cool about numbers. they're non-emotional. They just are. So there is no debate. Your repeat and referral business is 41% or 26% or whatever. And same thing here. Gross revenues are X, net revenues or net income is this. So, and if you just say, look, I'm going to hang up for now and I'm going to think about, I'm going to pay more attention. You know, those of you who look at 2021 and say, I want to be more fit this year. Okay. So you probably say, I'm gonna eat better and I'm gonna work out more or whatever. I'm gonna be more diligent about that. Okay, well, you have a roadmap of how you're gonna do that. Fiscally, one of the greatest stressors on your life is financial mismanagement, and it's expensive. And the shame of it is that the people that are paying that money don't have the money, you know? This is a bad analogy, but in Minneapolis, when it snows, you have the same thing happen there. The impound lots get packed with cars that get towed. Now, those cars that get towed cost $400 or $500 to get out. Now, do you think the people overwhelmingly that are going to get those cars out have $400 to $500? And they don't, right? And so it's the reality in our world is those that can't afford something end up paying more. And when we're mismanaging stuff, we're paying more. So let's not do that anymore. Let's be vigilant. And I'm sounding preachy. I don't want me to be. I'm just telling you from experience. You'll feel better. You'll feel better, and you'll give off a different vibe when you go meet with a seller or a buyer, because you won't have that urgency. I got to get this deal done. You know, we want to get the deal done, but we don't have to force it. Does that help, guys?
Yeah, totally. Todd, I just want to say this, that it's very interesting. When we first started having you do these with us from the very beginning, I would say everyone in the room had never heard this kind of conversation, right? Today, probably as I look through the list of people who are attending, 75% of the people on this list have never heard this conversation before. But the 25% that have are texting me like crazy going, oh my gosh, I'm in good shape. Everything Todd's talking about, I either have in place or I'm in the process of putting in place, or I've been working on for a couple of years, but it's amazing. So for those of you that have never heard this conversation, some of you are going to be like, oh, this is so over my head. Just remember that it's just drips of listening and asking the right questions, right? And eventually all the pieces of the puzzle come together. I mean, how many years did I do a pretty big business and no one ever talked about this stuff with me ever, any other company I was at, until I came to KW. And I can say that I can check every box that's on Todd's list. I could not have said that 7 years ago, not a chance.
Maureen, I love that. I love that comment. You know, it reminds me of a deal I did years ago before Keller even. And I spoke to like 800 people and we were talking about this topic in general. And we got done and I was talking about, look, the money that comes in is not yours, right? So anyway, we get done and the guy who had hired me for the event came up and said, hey, Todd, that was great. Thanks for coming. He said, I've been coaching and training agents for 20 years and I've never had that conversation. And I said, well, Bob, what do you talk about? You know, because here's the great thing for all of you. The largest sector of wealth in America is self-employed businesses, small business. That's where it is. And you have that at your fingertips. You have a beautiful business that can create massive opportunities for you and your family and your loved ones. But it requires constant vigilance. It requires nurturing. Doesn't mean you have to be a nerd. It doesn't mean you have to know all kinds of tax law, because you don't. It just means that you care enough to be able to look at your accounts and know that they're balancing out and that that the money is flowing properly. And the best way to do it is just start working on it now. By the way, get out of debt. Work on the debt thing too. That's a separate thing. Cool. All right, guys. Questions, comments, any thoughts?
Todd, I would say this. First of all, thank you for your time and jumping on to really kind of challenge our thoughts and thinking around a very important topic. And know this, guys, I think a lot of today was around the mindset and our relationship with money. And Todd, if it's cool with you, I'd love to schedule a follow-up call for some point in 2020, early part of 21, when it fits in your schedule. Because I think I've seen you have this conversation enough. I think the next step to this is some of the strategies and tips and tricks. You know, you talked about having your kids as employees on LLCs, or the snowball effect of helping get rid of debt. I think that's kind of the next conversation.
Let's go. Love to do it.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and my best to all you guys and your families, and you know, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, everybody. Just have a great. Let's recharge. Okay, Charlie, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. Maureen, good to see you.
No, Todd, always a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Have a great holidays.
Be safe. You too. Bye-bye.